The girl's name is Lily Heron. 3 months ago, she married King Anber Ricardo and became queen. But she's only queen by title. She was left in a lonely tower, and Anber doesn't let her leave there for a second. He's meticulous about it and doesn't give her any freedom. Lily has long thought that he hates her because if he loved her, her life would look very different. The girl has not smiled for a long time and has forgotten what it is like to feel loved. There is also a minimum of assistance. As soon as they finish with cleaning and cooking, all the maids return to the main palace, as there is nothing else for them to do here. The lady thought more than once about why Anber had chosen her as his consort, how she was different from the others, and what was in store for her in the future. At some point, the girl notices a very familiar thing on the floor. She bends down to it and realizes it's her husband's. The thing is that this jewelry Anber never takes it off. He probably just accidentally dropped it, didn't notice it and moved on for him to just take it off or throw it away. That just can't happen. This pendant has always been very important to him, so his wife just couldn't pass it by. She picked it up and took it with her. She thought that her husband would be very upset if he noticed that the pendant was missing, so she decided to take it straight to the owner. Sooner or later, he would be looking for it anyway, and this way, he wouldn't even have to be nervous and waste his time. She'd really like her husband to appreciate her help and then treat her a little better. Since he ordered her not to leave the tower, if the girl does, it will be a very big risk. We need to understand what is more important, to listen to her husband or to take him the pendant. But that pendant has the emblem of the royal family on it. It's definitely something important, so he probably won't yell at her too much. At one point, Lily remembered how evil he could be and thought that she didn't have to meet him in person, just give the pendant to a trusted person. At the most unexpected moment, some girl approaches her, and at the same second, Lily felt that nothing good to expect from this meeting is better. She only by the look of this person realized what she needed. She's got this energy that makes you want to go somewhere else and think of anything to avoid this conversation. This girl, her name is Maria. She is a princess of the kingdom of Alta. You never know what you can expect from her. She only shows up or talks to someone when she needs something. She pretended to have come to congratulate the queen on her wedding, and afterwards, apologizing for such a late congratulation, she smiles as if very happy about this supposedly chance meeting. Lily smiled back and thanked her for such warm words, but at the same time, she is very careful to talk to her so as not to say anything unnecessary. Maria began to hint that they needed to talk about something, and preferably if it was going to be soon. Lily replied that they could do it right now, and she would be happy to help if it was within her power. She was very interested in why she wanted to discuss it specifically with her, and why it was so necessary. The girl smiled without hesitation and explained that she had been in love with her husband for a long time and didn't know how to say it. At that moment, Lily couldn't believe her ears. She thought she'd just heard it. But that's not all. She's about to find out the best part right now. Maria happily admitted that the guy had told her some time ago that, frankly, he regretted marrying Lily. And if it were possible to turn back the clock, he would never have done it. It's not hard to guess that's why he locked her in that old tower, so his wife wouldn't know or see anything. It turns out that all this time they were lovers, and only Maria could admit it to her. Even though she told the truth, the smile does not leave her face. She is not even ashamed to remind that Anber did not even translate with his wife the first night after the wedding, as it should be. And of course, that's not all. The girl also told about the fact that that night he came to her, they spent the whole evening together and discussed how to be with this relationship. Lily listens to all of this and can't believe that this is possible. Despite the way her husband treats her, she trusted him and was sure he would never betray her, especially not after their first wedding day. One wonders why he married her and wasted her time. And lastly, her husband's mistress did not forget to mention that if it had not been for Lily, she could have been queen. The guy even promised it to her more than once, but at some point, for some reason, things didn't go according to plan. Lily doesn't want to believe it, but realizes that it was weird not to suspect the Ander of it the whole time. It turns out that if not for this wedding, everyone could live happily with those they truly love. It remains to be seen why the king, who does not love her, married her and ruined her future life as well. Lily herself doesn't know how she hasn't ended this relationship yet, because now she is just suffering, and she could have enjoyed her life a long time ago. She knows that her husband doesn't care about her, but something keeps her going. He never even once looked at her with a kind look or said anything nice. If they didn't have a wedding, it would be impossible to even think they were husband and wife. Lily thought that the princess had told her about it only so that she would want to leave the relationship and give her place to her. But as it turned out, she was ready to do anything to get her way as soon as possible. And right now, she starts attacking her competitor, who, because of all this information, couldn't get her bearings in time to step aside. The last thing Lily heard was the words that she must die for the happiness of true lovers who can't be without each other. That said, the princess is still smiling and acting like she had to do it anyway. She asked not to be angry with her, for now that her rival was dead and would not be able to stop her. According to her, the world was a better place, as she had always thought that if she had to get rid of someone for the sake of happiness, there was no problem with that. She doesn't regret her action for a second. She has only a happy marriage with her lover and a rival who is no longer her. Surprisingly, after this brutal blow, Lily is still conscious and can even say something. She opens her eyes and starts looking around, but at the same time, she gets worse and worse. She starts calling out for someone to help, though this situation it may be pointless. No one needs her here, and even if someone sees, Lily just sends her past and won't even stop. Now the girl was finally convinced that if she had another opportunity, she would never again marry or trust a man she was not sure of. Lily often doubted her husband. Everything seemed fake and wrong with him. The girl wanted to start her life the way she wanted it, but he took away her freedom forever and betrayed her by finding a mistress. After the wedding, he locked her in the tower, but it was still not enough for her to realize what kind of man he was. The girl hoped to the last that he was a good man and would soon realize how cruelly he had treated her. But it was all part of a plan that Lily didn't even know about. She ended up wasting a lot of time, and now she regretted it a lot. Who would have thought that after all she'd been through, she'd have to die at the hands of her lover? Except Amber, Lily, he saved her, didn't leave her alone. What's going on? Though it's possible that it's just dreams and a last hope that will never come true in reality, her husband is not capable of such a thing. But is it really real? Is he really carrying her in his arms? Though maybe he just wants to take her somewhere far away so no one will find her and help her? Right now, the girl doesn't realize anything. She is almost unconscious and has no idea what will happen next. She's been through so much already. Her life is so unfair that she can hardly be hurt worse than her husband's betrayal. It was strange that he had approached her at all to find out where she was. Perhaps someone had reported that she wasn't on the tower grounds, though the girl hadn't gotten that far away. She hadn't even made it outside yet. Turns out it was nothing more than a political marriage, and her love was one-sided from the very first day they met. Though she knew all the conditions, marrying a man cold in character, Lily was sure to the last that he was not as bad as she had been told. She thought he would change, and things would not be as she had been warned. Even though it was her own fault for making that choice and agreeing to that proposal, either way, things turned out much worse and not quite the way they should have been. Lily thought that if their marriage was destined to end this way, it would be better if she had never married him. That was the most important thing. The biggest and most serious mistake of her life. At the very last moment, the girl unconsciously began to think that she would be given a second chance. She wanted to start over so badly that at some point some miracle happened. The girl found herself in some other place, as if teleported from one place to another. She began to hear familiar voices and realized that it wasn't over yet. Lily tried to regain consciousness and saw something different than the last time she had seen it in front of her. At first, she saw some silhouettes, and for a few minutes she didn't realize what had happened. She felt some strange force that seemed to bring her back to this world. They started asking her if she was okay, and it turned out to be her older brother. The girl doesn't understand what's going on. She doesn't have time to get her bearings, as she immediately started asking a lot of questions. Someone thought she was having a nightmare. Someone suggested she rest a little longer, and someone reminded her that there wasn't much time left before the parade. Lily hears the word parade and is completely confused. She tries to figure out what it's all about, but it's all too weird. The girl looked at her reflection in the window, saw the dress, and remembered that she had worn it to the parade in honor of Amber's 19th birthday. Some girl noticed a beautiful piece of jewelry on her dress and asked why she had not worn it before. Lily only wanted to answer something, as suddenly the carriage shook violently. As it turned out, one wheel ran over some small stones. It happens a lot, so it's not surprising, except that the very piece of jewelry that the girl had noticed had come off, and Lily noticed it right away. She tried to catch it, and all this time, it appeared as if time was going very slowly. The girl focused only on the jewelry, because she realizes that if suddenly something happens to him, it will be very frustrating. She starts reaching for this pendant and realizes she has a few seconds, and if she doesn't, it'll just shatter into little pieces. By some miracle, the girl caught it, but even after that, it took her a few seconds to realize it and calm down. She was almost resigned to what could be and how she would feel if this valuable thing just shattered into little pieces before her eyes. After that, she remembered the moment even better and began to realize what time it was. She clearly remembered the carriage and her sensations, which it was simply impossible to forget. But all is not as good as it seems. Once Lily had calmed down a bit, she looked at the pendant again and saw that it was slightly cracked. It was very dear to her. The girl remembers how she tried to fix it several times, but nothing worked. She was afraid to admit it to anyone, because she would never be given something like that again. After that, she tried not to think about it, because now the main thing is to get oriented and clearly understand what time it is and what's next. Unless, of course, it is not a super realistic dream or just a memory of his life before his death. She really wants to understand the situation. It would be too risky to ask directly. It is necessary to gradually find out information because this is the safest and most appropriate way to do it. In the meantime, they had already arrived at their destination. The girls saw a lot of strangers around and realized that they had arrived at a very large and important event. Everyone started to get very close to the carriage to be the first to see the Ander, because no one wants to miss this moment. It just so happened that Lily arrived almost at the same time as her boyfriend, and as soon as he started to get out of his carriage, she was asked to give this bouquet to him right away. The girl notices that everything is going according to her memories. She remembers everything very well and understands what to expect. Therefore, it can only mean one thing. She really got into the past and will have to live again all that she has already lived. Though maybe she'll take this chance and right all her wrongs. Besides, knowing what the future holds, it'll be a lot easier than any other situation. In the meantime, he gets out of the carriage and looks ahead as if he doesn't notice everyone around him. He has a very serious look as always, which as if speaks of his high status and serious character. It so happened that Lily was very lucky. She was exactly where he was going. The guy immediately saw her, and as soon as he started to come closer, he slowed down to give her a chance to do and say what she wanted. At this moment, she felt so awkward that she had already forgotten how to behave. She saw his cold gaze and was a little embarrassed. Lily looked at him and thought he was just going to walk by, but luckily the guy stopped and even smiled a little, which is very rare. In contrast to the way she had planned things, he looked at her with a very gentle look, though usually, even when he's in a good mood, he purposely makes it look like he's not. It's not the same person she knows. Now it's like he's not the same person she used to see. It seems like it's not a real emotion, even though the girl didn't even notice it before. She had always thought he was a sincere person, and it was only now, somehow, that she fully recognized the man. It was very apparent how hard he tried to appear to be something very different from what he really was. And yet, so as not to stall or delay anyone, she gave him this beautiful bouquet and wished him a happy birthday. She said she was honored to speak and do so first. Anders smiled, though the girl had already forgotten when that had happened anyway. For now, she could take it easy, relax, and calmly plan her next steps, if of course, she planned to change something and correct her mistakes. It had been so long since Lily had seen him in a good mood that now she wanted to stay close to him and just watch him smile, if it was real, of course. Meanwhile, some time had passed, and after the parade they met at a ball given by the new king of the... He instantly stole her heart and made it so that she couldn't think of anyone or anything else. In fact, he was very good at it. Maybe she was meant to fall in love with him after all, and everything would be fine if it weren't for the fact that it's not real. Right after the ball was over, she receives a letter from him. The girl couldn't believe it. He proposed to her, and that moment seemed to be the best moment of her life. She felt like the luckiest person in the world, as if she had chosen some incredible surprise, even though it was only a beautiful shell that hid a lot of things evil and bad behind it. Lily reread the letter several times and was afraid that at some point she would wake up and realize that it was a dream. She wouldn't live through that. She was convinced several times that it was real and even tried to pinch herself. At that moment, she didn't even know what could be better than an offer from an Ander. She couldn't even dream about it before. She couldn't believe that a guy chose her and proposed marriage after just one single dance. Then just a dance was something incredible for her. But now, she gets a proposal too. Lily couldn't understand for a long time why he had chosen her. Only after a while she realized that it was a marriage of convenience, and that there was definitely some profit in it for him anyway. She didn't pay attention to it, and decided that no matter what, she would agree even to a marriage of convenience. In the end, even though she became a queen as she had dreamed, but even after the wedding ceremony, her husband seemed to disappear and disappear. He did not come to her even at night. Once the guy got what he wanted, everything that happened next is already known. She was destroyed by her husband's mistress, which she found out about just a few minutes before her death, when there was no point in hiding anything anymore. Only now she realizes that after the wedding, she had the time and opportunity to break up, but only because of the hope that everything would be fine soon. She waited for a very long time and in the end, only lost time. Now she has the opportunity to live her life over again, and it's going to be a lot easier than the last time. In fact, it is very difficult for her to look him in the eyes and realize that now she is not so naive and he will not be able to deceive her so quickly and easily. Now everything will be completely different and, most importantly, fair. Very interesting what will happen next. But in general, it's already clear. Lily wants to survive and make sure that no one else can take advantage of her trust and soft character. Now, she will no longer be as comfortable with others as she used to be. It only leads to a bad outcome and no good outcome at all. Anyway, now she has to pretend as if nothing happened and she doesn't know who is really in front of her. She smiles back at him and is embarrassed as if for the first time. She needs to make a lot of effort to at least slightly increase the chance that she will be able to live a little longer. If suddenly, everything will be exactly the same as in the past life, nothing will change. He will have a mistress, who sooner or later will want to get rid of the competitor, even if it is not planned by him. For now, she needs to either ignore him or make him fall in love with her for real, and not want to hang out with anyone else. For now, it seems impossible, but since there's no other option, we'll just have to accept it. Meanwhile, they're all in the carriage, and so far, everything seems to be calm. Strangely enough, despite this whole situation, the girl starts to fall in love with him. As if for the first time, he literally charmed her with his smile and made her fall in love in a new way. At the same time, she realizes that people don't change. She just got caught in the past and has to take revenge on him, and of course, survive. On the way back, the same situation happened as the first time. The carriage started to wobble very badly, and as it turned out, it was again because of the road. The carriage wheel had completely fallen off. Lily thought it couldn't happen twice in a row, but unfortunately anything is possible. After that incident, the windows broke and her brother lost the ability to get around for the rest of his life. He started having problems with his legs. That just can't be solved anymore. The guy tried to deal with it, but it didn't work. She didn't know what to pay attention to. She was very worried about her brother, but at the same time, thinking about herself, it was very difficult to react in time and understand what to do. There is immediately began to ask very many questions. Mom, the woman was very afraid that someone hurt or scared. Everyone was quickly asked to buckle up, because if they didn't, they could be very seriously injured. Even the second time, Lily didn't know what to do and was experiencing these emotions as if for the first time. It was like an eternity. She saw some slow-motion images and felt that nothing depended on her. Everything would be as it was, as it would be. At some point, the girl looked out and saw something she definitely didn't expect. The window was completely intact, as if nothing had happened. In the end, she tried to think about it because, as you know, no matter what happens, something saves her anyway. Some unknown force wants her to right her wrongs no matter what. It turns out that what had just happened was just her memories, and in fact, by some miracle, nothing had happened. Her relatives were even surprised that she had expected something bad. Her brother was fine. No one was hurt. Lily realized that in this life, she could see some situations from the past and perceived as if they were reality, but as it turned out, sometimes some moments may not be the same as they should be. Very strange because it will be very difficult to calculate and plan further steps. Of course, it is very good that no one was hurt, but how to know whether this or that situation will happen or not? Lily remembers these two situations very well. When she dropped the brooch twice and in one of them, her brother was very badly hurt. It's still unclear how it works, but it turns out she's in less trouble in this life. Something saved her brother. A bad situation didn't happen and the brooch remained intact, unlike how it should be. She really wants to get to the bottom of this situation, because something like avoiding unpleasant situations. She was already prepared and resigned to the fact that her brother would get hurt and her jewelry would be broken. She has, of course, the assumption that maybe she's the one who had some effect on the situation, and in her presence, maybe nothing like this is happening, and it's not all by chance. In any case, it still needs to be proven. It's too early to draw any conclusions and be sure about it. At that very second, she had an interesting idea. If nothing breaks in her presence and no one gets hurt, Lily decided to break a vase of flowers, and supposedly it should survive. Lily casually drops it on the floor and watches carefully, wondering what will happen in the end and whether her assumptions will be confirmed. When suddenly the vase does break, she looks at it and realizes she's even more confused, plus it feels like her head is starting to hurt more and more. The more she tries to think about something, the more she wants to get rid of those thoughts and finally quietly rest without thinking about anything. 3 days later, during that time, Lily was able to realize something. She has a power that allows her to restore time by exactly 3 seconds. It's amazing how she realized it, but it's true. The girl has experimented several times, and it turns out that she can only use this power 3 times a day, no more. If she raises this limit, it affects the body, but this was not enough for her. The girl decided to continue this investigation to get to know herself, because it is not excluded that she may have some other superpowers that she does not even know about. She began to study different literature, to study herself and, in general, a new reality, although the girl just got into the past. But this world is clearly different from where she was before. There are a lot of changes here. She wants to figure out what she can use this power on and how it works. So she starts experimenting on literally everything around her, even things that are valuable and better not to be experimented with. Even though there is some limit, Lily, why did you think she could extend the time given to slow down time? In her previous life, when the engagement to Anber was announced, her family was very happy for her and sure, it was the first and last marriage of her life. But unfortunately, everything turned out a little bit differently than they would have liked. They are still sure that the newlyweds are very happy and in love with each other. Lily did not tell them about what really happened. If news of her death spread, her mom, dad, and brother must have been very upset and had no idea what was going on. It turns out that not only did she get the opportunity to go back in time and correct her mistakes, she got the power that will make it even easier and more interesting to do everything she has in mind. For now, Lily is sure of only one thing. No matter what happens, she will not marry this man. A year later, originally the girl didn't even hope she'd make it to this point. She's gotten a little used to living in this world and is even doing well with her powers. And that's not the best part. It's that she's made so much progress that she can stop time for 10 minutes, not just 3 seconds. She's been training hard all this year so she doesn't doubt herself and knows exactly what she's capable of. She can now stop time for 10 minutes and plans to achieve twice that amount. Now she feels it's not enough, although just a year ago it was some seconds. That being said, it was completely by accident that she found out she had this ability at all. So the progress is actually not small but quite worthwhile. And yet, the limit remains the same. It still only allows you to stop time 3 times a day, and it doesn't matter if she stops time for a second or an hour. Unfortunately, the girl never figured it out, but that's not the end of it. She's sure something can be worked out about it too. As suddenly, someone knocked on the door. This person did not even introduce himself, although usually it is customary to warn then who enters the room, especially if it is someone from the staff. The maid comes in and says that they have to go somewhere. The girl tried to turn a blind eye to it. After all, nothing bad had happened. Since today is the day of the ball organized by Anber, it should be prepared several hours in advance. That's what the assistant was saying. The thing is, the king died a couple months ago and Anber was proclaimed the new king. This is his first score as king. Officially was arranged in honor of the coronation, but in fact, at this ball, the young king was looking for a spouse. Few people knew about it. Even his aides did not guess about it. Even considering this fact that no one knew the real reason for this event, literally all the girls, as usual, tried to draw his attention to themselves. It turns out that the event is no different from how it normally happens. The only difference is that Anber himself wanted to choose one of the girls, and at the end of the day, one of the ladies would be his bride. In the end, he chooses Lily. Even she hadn't expected it. She had always thought herself inferior to the others and had never dreamed that he would choose her. She was always expecting some kind of a trick. And as it turned out, though she didn't realize it, it was just like that. Lily had stopped noticing everyone around her and was only thinking about him. She had originally not wanted to attend the ball at all, but all the noble ladies of the kingdom had been invited. So attendance was mandatory. Lily couldn't refuse and of course had to come. And today is the day. The girl has decided that if he asks her to dance again, she must do everything possible so that he does not want to propose marriage to her. Does she really want to deliberately behave so that the guy will change his mind and choose someone else? But only not her. Anyway, she's no longer as naive as she used to be. Now she knows what's really going on and has an amazing ability to. In the meantime, the helpers made her a real beauty. They did a beautiful makeup, hairstyle, and picked out a suitable outfit. Afterward, she was asked what accessories she wanted to wear, but Lily didn't really want to think about it because it was more important to come up with a plan. She randomly picked out some piece of jewelry and said she'd probably pick that one out today. Though really, she didn't care at all which one to go with. The maid took the jewelry and saw that the clasp was loose. She offered to choose something else so that it wouldn't get lost. Lily didn't get too upset and agreed to pick something else. Besides, she doesn't care for this piece of jewelry. Meanwhile, she's already in the hall, looking at the people around her and can't get enough of it. She sees that everyone is relaxed and quietly enjoying the moment, unlike her. She's the one who's got a whole investigation and an important case here. All these people are here to have a good time, and Lily has to save her life. The first thing she does is start looking for Anber so she knows exactly where he is. She goes to fully control him and realize that everything is going according to plan. At this point, it's like he's looking at her from afar on purpose. But the girl was expecting it. She's ready for it, and she's not even nearly as nervous. The plan is, Lily will watch him closely, and if suddenly he starts to approach, she will stop time around him and run somewhere far away. Her maximum is 10 minutes. In that time, she should run as far away as possible. She thinks that's enough to get away to the other side of the room. It's weird. She has the option to escape outside the mansion since she's already here. You can assume Lily was at the event, and if there are any questions, you can explain that there was some business that came up. Meanwhile, he starts walking straight towards her. The girl tries to concentrate and calm down, because if she worries, nothing will work. She has to control herself completely. And not to think that there might be any problems, Lily is doing it for the first time, so everything is too responsible. The lady thought it would be a good start to just hide and calm down a bit. She saw the perfect spot behind her, and in just a second, she had already managed to hide herself away. Strangely enough, the guy really didn't notice anything. She was so quick and good at it, something he didn't even have to look elsewhere. Anber starts looking around, which means that the person he's looking for is definitely not in a prominent place. She started to follow him from afar and thought that maybe that encounter in her past life was a mere coincidence. They must have just crossed glances, and if they avoided that now, the plan would work. Meanwhile, he's getting closer and closer, as if the guy senses it and comes to the place where Lily is hiding. The girl doesn't see it yet, but he's already going to her. The distance between them was getting smaller and smaller. Lily even regretted that she had so rashly used one of the 3 opportunities to stop time. It was too bad an attempt, so next time she would have to be more careful. Since she still has a few seconds, she didn't stand in one place and ran in some direction. Strange, but the guy didn't see it yet. So far, everything is going in her favor. At some point, he accidentally heard a sound. He looked in that direction and didn't understand anything. He thought it was just a vision and decided to ignore it. Some time has passed since that moment. Lily has been standing behind some curtain for a long time looking out for Ander. At the most unexpected moment he happens to be near, opens this side and sees Lily. He approached the girl with a smile and asked why he was standing here. Lily was scared. She thought he had figured it out and felt too awkward. She has no idea what to say to that so as not to make it worse. To my surprise, he didn't ask many questions and asked only one thing: to dance. The girl got very tense and thought that something should be done now. Since she was invited by the king himself, she can't refuse. So here you have to come up with either something ingenious to leave and stay in a normal relationship, or agree and make another mistake. In the end, Lily pretends to be the happiest girl in the world and says that this is a big part of it for her, and also that she's been dreaming of this her whole life. It turns out she used her one shot and it didn't make any sense. The one who's going to be Ander's mistress is watching, and she's also trying to be as inconspicuous as possible so she can see everything and stop them from being together. The girl starts to hate Lily, and as soon as she sees the guy come up to her and offer her a dance, she wants to do something crazy. Meanwhile, Lily regretted agreeing to dance. She should have stopped time and tried to avoid again. For now, he had outlined her, And even if she ran somewhere, there would be a lot of questions. But still, there's the question of how he found her and why he went to the curtain as if he knew she was there. She began to have thoughts that perhaps the future could not be changed, and she was doomed to be killed by this man's mistress. She really doesn't want to see her smile again, and realize that her end is coming soon. Just because she got a chance to go back in time doesn't mean there will be another chance like that. Seeing that the girl was a little upset, Ander assumed that she didn't like dancing and asked what was wrong. He explained that there was nothing wrong with it. He understood. But still, he would like to know what was bothering her so much. Lily replied that it's not like that. In fact, she's just worried and doesn't know how to behave because she's never been offered anything like that before. So he thought she was worried for a reason. Not just as a girl who is shy, but just because of the dance anyway. It was very good that he thought so. Ander noticed that she moved well and complimented her. He tries his best to make sure she is the best here, and he only chose her because it's true. But now Lily knows everything. She can never be fooled. And even if she smiles back, it doesn't mean anything. It's just so that he doesn't suspect anything and keeps believing that he's doing well. As soon as the dance came to an end, the guy stopped and asked if he could ask what question, that it was very serious and would like the girl not to refuse. Lily already knows what he means, so tries to keep the intrigue and not to agree right away. Lily asked how she could help him, to which the guy replied that he would like to talk in private. The girl was frightened, although she knew perfectly well that this was how it would be. All these emotions she feels as if for the first time. The girl looks into his eyes and can't believe that he has such a strong energy that, looking at him, he doesn't want to refuse at all, even knowing that it's a very big mistake. In the end, she agrees, but warns that time is very short. She has some very important things to do that can't be postponed to the next day. In fact, she had already forgotten what he was going to ask, and at some point, she wished she had stopped time and tried to run away, because the more conversations and meetings she had with this man, the harder it would be to escape, and most importantly, to survive. The first thing Ander offers to drink her some kind of beverage, unsurprising if it turns out to be poisoned or tainted. Lily tried her best to refuse, but it didn't work out. She doesn't know what's going on and sincerely wants to get out of here as soon as possible. He did make her drink the juice and promised it would be delicious. Lily agreed and thanked him. And then she asked him what he wanted to talk about, since she still supposedly had a lot of things to do. Ander said it was nothing serious and explained that he just wanted to be with her longer, which meant only one thing. He had deceived her, and that he didn't care if she had things to do or not. After that, another friend changed dramatically. After saying that it was nothing serious, he started asking really serious and unexpected questions, namely, whether she had a favorite person. It was at this point that she had the perfect opportunity to deceive him and tell him that she really had a young man she loved very much and would not trade him for anyone else. Instead of answering the question right away, Lily asked why he was asking about it and made it clear that maybe she wasn't really interested in a relationship with him. At least she wasn't in a hurry to say there was no relationship and was happy to agree to be with him. Ander explained that when he was watching her while she was dancing, he noticed it looked like she had a crush on some guy, and so she was uncomfortable dancing with someone else. It's very strange, but after saying that, he starts laughing, as if it was a hint that he's the man, and she's embarrassed to say it, because if she had some other guy, she'd have no problem telling him and refusing to dance. Lily saw his smile again. She had a feeling like she had never seen it before. And yet, instead of answering the question directly, she asks a counter question and asks if he has such a person in his, even though he normally never tells anyone about his personal life. For some reason, he revealed that lately, all he's been doing is thinking about this girl. At this point, she immediately remembers that while they were a couple, he barely spoke to her and did everything he could to make her feel unwanted and regret the wedding. His thoughts were always somewhere far away. He rarely talked about his experiences and never told anyone how he really felt. It made her very uncomfortable to remember those situations when she loved him and hoped that sooner or later they would have a happy relationship. And he took advantage of that and was with another girl while his wife was locked in the tower. Perhaps if they had lived together, Lily might have realized sooner that his mind was on someone else and that he had a mistress that everyone knew about except her. When he kept forbidding her to go out all the time, at first it looked like caring or wanting his beautiful wife not to be seen. But the more time passed, the more it looked like cheating. He only wanted one thing, that his wife did not interfere with his communication and meeting with Maria. Lily thought until the last that he had a lot of work. But as it turned out, all this time he was with her. The girl, she can't understand why he married her instead of Maria. If it was a marriage of convenience, he could have benefited from Maria and lived happily with her for the rest of his life, not like his wife. At some point, they did not even notice how they were not alone. The girl only heard some footsteps and immediately realized who it could be. There were not so many options, but it seems she was wrong. It wasn't Maria as she thought. It was one of the guy's helpers. He'd been looking for him for a long time and finally managed to find him in the backyard. He wants to tell you that someone wants to talk to him, and he's Duke David. He's Amber's closest aide. In fact, the gentleman was very much surprised, for he did not think there was anyone who could need him so urgently. David said that Princess Mary of the Kingdom of Alta is very eager to meet him, and since it is not customary for her to refuse, it would be best to agree and not refuse. Lily wasn't even surprised. Everything happened almost exactly as she thought it would. Only instead of the princess herself, an assistant came to deliver her request. Ander promised that he would come over soon and they would discuss it. He didn't really feel like talking about the princess right now in the presence of a girl she needed to benefit from. Besides, she should know as little about the princess as possible. Instead of, at least for the sake of decency, to be with her for a while, he apologized at once and said he had to go right away. Lily did not refuse, and of course said there was nothing wrong with that. She said that she understood, for he was a very busy man whom she did not wish to detain. The girl smiled and wished him well. In fact, she already really wanted him to leave as soon as possible. In his presence, she feels not only cheated, but like a person who can't even defend herself, like refusing or saying everything she thinks about him. Though the king tried to pretend that he didn't really want to leave, in fact, the princess's request was just a way to end this conversation quickly. They agreed to go out and spend the evening together. Ander met his beloved in the hallway and said that she didn't have to come here. Maria explained that she just wanted to see him as soon as possible, and she didn't care what people around her thought about it or how they would perceive it. The girl looked back with an ominous look to see the lilies and to make it clear that she would be the only one with this guy, and if someone tried to take him away, they would regret it very much. Ander became very nervous, because after this, many people will immediately understand what it was. He hopes that Lily does not understand anything and really perceives the princess as a business partner and no more. The lady purposely pretends that she naively trusts him, for now she has the perfect opportunity to use this time to create and come up with a new plan, for there is not as much time as one would think. Only now the girl sees the truth and realizes that he has been deceiving her since the first day of their acquaintance, and did it on purpose, taking advantage of her kindness and naivety. When she saw this picture, she began to hate this man even more. And in fact, she hated the guy much more than the princess, because he made such a choice, deceived her, and did everything only for his own benefit. In the meantime, she went down to the hall and tried to calm herself down. She said several times that everything was fine. She shouldn't be nervous and afraid of something before the time. After all, she didn't owe anyone anything yet. If suddenly she doesn't like something, she has every right to explain that she understands everything perfectly well, and sees that there is clearly some relationship between him and the princess, which they are trying very hard to hide. After talking to the guy, the girl realized that she is very lost and sometimes afraid to do what she planned. She needs more confidence and strength not to give in to his manipulations. He literally manipulates and does everything as it is profitable only for him, not thinking about whether the girl wants to communicate with him at all. He takes advantage of the fact that absolutely everyone dreams to marry him, and it gives him a lot of confidence. The lady decided that this time she had made it all possible and impossible. The main thing was that she would not become his wife, even if it was impossible and he would make her do it. Meanwhile, it was evening. Lily had been thinking all this time only about how she could find the strength to act further. She was all alone in this situation, and she was afraid that even if she could think of something, she just wouldn't be able to achieve it. Meanwhile, Ander had already returned from his walk and asked for some dinner to be prepared. The assistant first offered a cup of tea and then handed over to the cook to prepare something as soon as possible. David saw that the gentleman was very nervous and worried about something, so he took a risk and decided to ask what happened. When the gentleman started to ignore him and made it clear that he did not want to talk about it, he apologized and offered to rest in his room. Ander said he wanted to stay here. He wasn't tired enough to go to his room and go to bed. After that, they started discussing activities and accidentally started talking about the princess. Ander started to get visibly nervous and asked them not to bring up the subject again. The assistant immediately realized what he really is. He has something to hide, and sooner or later the princess will turn out they are just a business partner, as he tells everyone and tries to convince those who doubt it. Since he didn't want to talk about Maria, David hinted about Lily and asked if he wanted to talk about it. For at the very least, he saw how much the gentleman enjoyed his time, and especially the dancing. This time the guy's not as nervous, which means everyone can know about Lily, but no one can know about the princess. At some point, he didn't even notice that he had stopped paying attention to David. He had a lot on his mind, especially about the fact that she said she wasn't in love with anyone. He was very curious to find out if that was really true. He wasted no time and asked about it directly. If the aide knew if the Duke's daughter had some sort of fiancé or just a guy she was in love with, it was important for him to know any information he just knew or had heard of. David said he didn't know anything about it, and most likely if she had some lover, he would definitely know about it, and he wasn't the only one. Just a second later, the gentleman took some pen, began to write something down, folded the whole letter and asked to give it personally to the Duke's daughter. The assistant was not afraid to ask what it was, and this time, he was very lucky. The gentleman admitted that it was an engagement proposal. At this moment, the assistant is speechless. He sincerely does not understand how he can so quickly make such an important and responsible decision, because they do not know each other at all, Lily, this girl with whom he danced only once and does not know what kind of person she is. He asked if Ander was in too much of a hurry, because, in his opinion, there should be a lot more time than just one meeting and one dance. And besides, a good impression after the first meeting was not an indicator that the relationship would be good. The gentleman did not listen to all this. He hinted that it was only his personal matter, which was nobody's business, and he also asked that no one should know about this letter. The assistant should deliver this letter personally into Lily's hands, and also, very importantly, a few words to pass on to her, namely that she should always keep the letter to herself and not let anyone read it. It's much more important than it sounds. David promised that everything would be done soon, and the gentleman could not worry about anything, for there had not yet been a situation where he had let him down or done anything wrong. It turns out that all the time he was talking to his assistant, one of the maids was standing behind the wall listening. She heard every word, and since she didn't leave, it means she wants to tell someone about it. It wouldn't be surprising if that person was a princess. The maid has that look in her eyes. It's absolutely no different than she does. She had some very bad thoughts and wanted to tell one person as soon as possible. The maid is obviously cooperating with someone and eavesdropping for a reason. Meanwhile, it was late night. The Duke's assistant, as promised, went out to select a horse to set out and deliver the letter to the security guard, who is responsible for the safety and security of the horses, asks why this guy suddenly needs a horse. Even so late, David explains everything, and finally the guard wishes him a good and safe journey. As soon as the assistant wanted to turn around, he was confronted by the very same assistant who was eavesdropping on his conversation with the gentleman, meaning it was on purpose. She didn't have any work to do here, and should have been resting before the workday long ago. The letter falls to the floor, and that's probably what she wanted. She needs to get her hands on that letter and find out what it says. Or better yet, give it to one person. The guy has no idea and even begins to apologize. He says it's his own fault because he didn't look around. In response, the girl starts to say the same thing, and at the same time, bends down to pick up the fallen letter. We can only hope that she won't pick it up and run away. The maid takes the letter, and surprisingly, she doesn't try to run away. She acts completely calm and doesn't even open it. First, she looked carefully at the envelope, read the name of the recipient, and that was it. She immediately gave it to her colleague and apologized again. The boy thanked her and said it wasn't her fault at all. And then he was suddenly curious to know what she was doing here at this late hour, since all the other maids were already asleep. She replied that she had seen one of the horses not feeling well this morning. She said she was supposedly very worried, so she decided to check on her to make sure everything was okay. He could very little believe it, but still, he just said he understood and didn't ask any more questions. So that her colleague would get out of here as soon as possible and not question her words, she reminded him that he was probably in a hurry and wished him a good trip. Then she left ostensibly to go about her business, but the deputy started to suspect her of something anyway. If she was really worried about the horse, she would have come in the afternoon and not at this late hour. At some point, he thought he was overthinking it. Since it wasn't his problem, he should just get this letter to the right person and say it was done. As soon as the assistant ran a few meters away, she immediately sped up and decided that she had to tell Princess Mary about the whole thing as soon as possible. Is she really her accomplice and helping her find out everything about Lily and what's going on with her lover? We can conclude that since she's so confident and quick to recognize everything, she's been doing this for at least a few months, maybe more. Meanwhile, the next day came. The king's aide had already arrived at his destination and had been arriving since morning. He knocked on the door and asked the aides to tell Lily that they had something to talk about. They immediately relayed this information to her and told her that he had some kind of letter in his hands, which means it's most likely a letter from the king. They just don't have any other options. Lily agreed and asked only one thing, that they help her pack, drink. Don't want to keep a person in trust waiting for her. At one point, she thought it would be a good idea to ask the assistants to have a guest in the living room answered, and she just goes as soon as she's dressed and ready to go. They very quickly picked out a dress, did a light makeup, and combed her hair. Lily was literally ready to talk in minutes. But still, she wanted to bring her image to perfection. All this time, she was only thinking about what the king's aide wanted to talk about. It was obvious that he didn't want to talk about any personal topics. He had come only to fulfill the Lord's request. A little later, it turned out that the assistant wanted to talk not only to Lily, but also to her father. While she was getting ready, he asked if he could talk to the man first, and then, when the girl was free, talk to her afterwards. All agreed to do just that, and finally, after some time, the father called his daughter into his study and informed her that the king was proposing an engagement. She received this letter, and even without her father's words, by the appearance of the envelope, it was at once clear what it said. In fact, the lad was sure that no one would let him in, especially at such an early hour. He knows this from his own experience, for when someone comes very early to see the gentleman, more often than not, he cancels the meeting and proposes to meet either in the evening or the next day. Of course, he thanked that they did not refuse him and agreed, despite the sudden visit, which no one had warned him about, not even a few hours in advance. He was very ashamed that it had happened, and so the guy promised that next time it would not happen again. The girl replied that he need not apologize, for she had done nothing wrong and there was nothing difficult about just meeting a guest and talking to him. After that, she thanked him in return and told him to be afraid to keep him waiting long. It went something like this. The guy comes in, gives her this envelope and says the king gave it to her personally. She had obviously not expected any letter. And of course, in such a situation, it was very interesting to read what it said. She had expected anything, but she didn't think it would happen so quickly. She took the letter in her hand, and as soon as she touched it, she felt that everything was very familiar. Afterward, as soon as the girl began to read, the guy asked that she not give the letter to anyone, much less let her read anything that was written there. The king himself had asked her to do so. At this moment, Lily looks at this sheet and realizes that because of her excitement, she can't read a single word. She needs to do it either in private or first calm down, and only after that, calmly read the content. David looks at her and realizes how awkward and very difficult she is right now. He knows what it says and can't even imagine how he would feel in her shoes. As soon as she felt even worse, he walked over and asked if she was all right, because he imagines how much she needed to feel comfortable and not afraid of anything right now. The fact that the king's aide was in front of her was almost the same as himself. Lily pretended that everything was fine. She didn't want the assistant to tell her master about everything. She had to do her best to make sure that Ander never found out what she really thought about it. Very interesting what she will do and what she will convey to the king. Now she has something to say, and it's even more exciting than before this moment. She finally made her final decision and asked if she could think about it in private for a while, because that way she could give an answer faster, if of course they needed one right away. Immediately afterward, they changed their minds and decided that it would be better if she sent the letter to the king herself and wrote what she thought of it. It would be better, for the assistant would not be able to convey the tone and substance of her answer as she would in her own handwriting and with her own words on paper. Now the guy is trying to keep a low profile. In fact, he will very well see how upset she is. He doesn't even know if he should tell Ander about it. After all, he's expecting good news and upsetting him wouldn't be the best idea. After that, he thought it didn't make sense. Because in any case, no matter what, she would still accept the proposal, because it was every girl's dream. In his opinion, it was probably just a coincidence. And in fact, in any other situation, she would be very happy. He doesn't realize that he could be better than a proposal from the king himself to marry him, especially after she's only seen him once in her life. The kind of thing everyone really dreams about. So far, things haven't exactly gone according to plan. The girl has changed almost nothing, and if she agrees to marry, you can assume it was all for nothing. She remembers very well how that time, in her previous life, she rejoiced at that moment so much that she didn't know what could be better. Her relatives rejoiced with her. It was one of the happiest days of her life. But now, everything is a little different. Will she really do nothing, and going back in time will change nothing? Will she really live this life again and die at the hands of her unloved husband's mistress? Of course, she really wants to be betrayed again, to have something she regretted very much happen again. But it all depends on her. On the one hand, she really wants to do her best. But on the other hand, she just doesn't know how to do it and whether it's possible at all. After the assistant left, her brother found out about it immediately, and in a few minutes he was already in the living room. He was very interested in finding out about everything, because it had never happened before. He started asking a lot of questions, as if the king had sent this letter for him and was waiting for his answer. He did not do very well, for in fact, his sister had not yet had time to calm down and make the right decision. Instead of asking him to leave and do what she really wanted to do, Lily smiled and tricked him a little. She didn't say anything about the offer, but instead told him it was just a written thank you for that dance. This time, she really wants no one to know what was written in the letter. Not even her father will know about it. The assistant did not tell him anything on purpose as the king had asked him to. The question arises as to what she should do with the letter. She can't throw it away because someone might open it and read it, but at the same time, keeping it in her room is not very safe either. Any of the maids might notice it and find out the truth. Meanwhile, a few days have passed. The king is sitting in his office and constantly checks the letters. But for some reason, among them, there is not the one he is waiting for and cannot wait for. He looked through the huge stack several times and still found nothing. He didn't understand what it meant anymore and thought that Lily was taking too long to answer. She should have made a decision long ago, but for some reason, no reaction, he didn't wait for it. The assistant thinks it is better not to rush her, for this is a very important decision, and it is never made as quickly as one would like. He is sure that Lady Lily will surely answer soon. In the end, the king did not listen to the aide. He wanted to go to her personally and find out the answer. Is it really so hard for him to wait that he is willing to arrange an awkward situation just to marry someone he doesn't love as soon as possible? It's all very strange because the assistant gave good advice, and if the guy had listened to him, it would have been much better. Now he's making a huge mistake, rushing and not being patient at all. Got angry and said that he didn't ask for any advice. Supposedly the best one knows how to act in these situations. He explained that he had too little time, though if he really loved Lily, he could be understood. But as it is, he's acting too weird and wrong. No matter how the assistant tries to stop him, nothing works. The king does not listen to him and does his own way. It's as if something is rushing him, and it's not surprising if there is some profit in it again. Lastly, he asked that if he wanted to give another piece of advice, he better not do it, unless of course he wanted to lose his job or get penalized. Meanwhile, the girl is just thinking about it. She wants to give an answer as soon as possible, but still, she is very scared, because her life may depend on it. She is afraid of making a mistake that cannot be corrected. She realizes that it's better not to refuse directly. She has to think of something better, but it's not clear yet. It's strange for her that the king is in such a hurry. It's obvious that if she refuses, Ander won't forgive it most likely. He'll want revenge.